This is the My Child Will Thrive podcast, and I'm your host, Tara Hunkin, certified functional nutritional therapy practitioner and mother. I'm here to share with you the latest research, expert advice, parent perspectives, resources, and tools to help you on your path to optimizing the health and development for your child with ADHD, autism, sensory processing disorder, learning disabilities, or other neurodevelopmental disorders. My own experiences with my daughter, combined with as much training as I can get my hands on, research I can dig into, and conferences I can attend, have helped me to develop systems and tools for parents like you who feel overwhelmed trying to help their children. So sit back as I share another great topic to help you on your journey. A quick disclaimer. Please keep in mind that the information provided is for information and educational purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose or treat your child and is not a substitute for working with a qualified practitioner. This episode of the My Child Will Thrive podcast is brought to you by the Autism, ADHD, and Sensory Processing Disorder Summit. You can sign up for free to watch 10 days of expert interviews and masterclasses at www.mychildwillthrive.com/summit. Now on with the show. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to welcome back today on the My Child Will Thrive podcast, Dr. Roseann, or Dr. Ro, we like to call her around here. Dr. Ro came to us, I guess it was last year when she had her book, It's Going to Be Okay, that came out. So
I'm so glad you have it, and it's right there.
I do. It's right here. So those of you that are watching, you can see the book. So I am thrilled to have her back because she is a mental health trailblazer. She's the founder of the Global Institute of Children's Mental Health and Dr. Roseann LLC, who is on a mission to change the way we view and treat mental health, showing people it's going to be okay, with science-backed tools that improve well-being. She's known for teaching how to calm the brain in order to have a happy family and giving the keys to unlock the brain's potential. With her trademarked method, the BrainBehaviorReset has helped thousands address the most challenging conditions such as ADHD, executive functioning, anxiety, OCD, mood, Lyme, and PANS and PANDAS using science-backed holistic therapies. She's the author of the first ever book on teletherapy activities for child and adolescent therapists, the Teletherapy Toolkit. And it's, as I just mentioned, and she's also the author of It's Going to Be Okay, which gives parents step-by-step solutions for their struggling kids with her books. Natural Parenting Solutions Facebook group is also her group, and she has a remote. So those of you listening who aren't in her area and are interested in neurofeedback, she has a remote neurofeedback program. She's a media personality, and she's often featured in dozens of media outlets such as Fox, CBS, NBC, Parents, and the New York Times, last but certainly not least. So great to have you back here with me today to talk all about PEMF, which we're going to define and go into all that. But and so tell me a little bit about, first of all, about how this past year has been since the launch of the book. And we're going to talk about a new device that you have as well. What's getting you really excited about the work that you're doing right now?
Yeah, well, I think, for both of us, as we're here supporting so many parents of kids that have neurodivergence, right? As well as on my end, specific mental health issues. I think people are realizing that mental health is important. At the same time, mental health is a full-on crisis across the globe, not just America anymore, even though I feel like the statistics show us that there's quite a bit of kids, percentage-wide. I mean, across the globe, we have 14% of 10 to 19-year-olds who have a mental health issue. And in the United States, 50% of kids who are actually diagnosed don't get help. So we're in a crisis. So I'm not excited about that, but what I am excited about is people are realizing that traditional allopathic paths, medication and standard talk therapy isn't moving the dial. Even though I'm a trained, therapist, and I believe very much in therapy, we're just not doing it in the right order. So, what I really focus on in teaching people is you have to calm the brain and teach new skills. That is what works. And we need to just get that message out and also empower parents. They can teach skills. They can help with calming the brain. There's many things that they can do. And the belief that a pill is going to fix it has to be over. I mean, it just has to be over. Clearly, there's Adderall shortages. People are calling me do neurofeedback because there's Adderall shortages. They might not have even considered it before, but then they're like natural solutions for ADHD and they find neurofeedback. So what is exciting for me is that I am doing more and more education for parents about natural solutions. And we now realize not everybody can do neurofeedback. And I wanted other options. So we have our PEMF. I'll explain what the device is. That's really portable and accessible, great for many kids who maybe can't sit and do certain therapies. Maybe they're, have a level of cognitive impairment. They're dysregulated in some way, shape, or form. And as well as we are much anticipated and much asked for supplement line called Neurotastic. So we're really excited about it. And I love the name. And it's going to be for kids, but it's a family supplement line. And the whole family will be able to use these supplements. They'll be in powder form to make it accessible and easy to dose. I know everybody wants a gummy, but gummies don't have enough punch in them to really deliver the high level of minerals and nutrients our kids need. So I'm really excited. This is something I've been working on a long time. And I'm happy to be helping other people in ways that science shows us works.
It's amazing. And that's, obviously you're creating all these things that parents have been looking for a really long time. So very accessible solutions to these problems. So supplements are always the challenge of getting them into. And then also, like you said, getting the dosage appropriately for what our kids need. So we'll have to talk about that another time once that's all ready to go. So let's talk about though PEMF. Can you tell us what exactly is PEMF and why it's something that we should all know more about?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, I do it every day. And even my teenager and 12-year-old use PEMF on their own without asking. And my cats like it. We'll leave it at that. But it's pulse electromagnetic field therapy, right? And it's based on this. And there's all different types of devices. They're FDA regulated. You can't have a PEMF device that the FDA hasn't approved. So this is technology that's been around a little over 3 decades. So we say it's much younger than neurofeedback, and it's different. So I'm really into brain tools, neurofeedback, biofeedback, different types of neurofeedback. And please know, everyone's going to say, oh, what about this type of neurofeedback? What about this type of PMF? There's a right thing for each person, but ultimately these things all work to calm and regulate the brain. And that is a big belief in what I see with our kids with behavioral and mental health issues and neurodevelopmental issues. They're dysregulated nervous systems for a variety of reasons. And we'll talk about that. But PEMF, what is it? So it's based on frequency theory and field theory. So we know that there are certain frequencies associated with just about everything. So for example, a strawberry has a certain frequency that your brain, when it tastes it, knows it's a strawberry. So frequency work is used in food science, where they have natural flavorings. They attach a strawberry frequency to goop. So the goop isn't unnatural, but it's putting that same frequency and your brain recognizes it as strawberry, which is kind of interesting. So that's not what this device does. But but since we know the frequencies, for example, I have 5 types of devices, same device, 5 clinical or symptom related issues. So I have one that's attention and learning. And so what I put in that device is the frequencies associated with attentional issues, right? And all of my devices have something that addresses the gut-brain connection, MTHFR genetic mutations, sleep, stress, detoxification and genetics components related to infections. So no matter which type they have, so we now know with PEMF, there are certain frequencies that are going to help the body get rid of disharmonious frequencies, particularly related to EMFs, but other areas. So for example, in the, related to the gut, I'm sending in a frequency that cancels out unhealthy frequencies that disrupt the gut. It comes in with a corrective frequency, and it teaches the cell to act in a healthier manner. It changes the health and the function of the cell. So it works on a cellular level. That's the first thing PEMF does, which is really kind of cool. And then two, what it does is PEMF calms the nervous system. It takes you from a sympathetic dominant or even a higher level close to parasympathetic. It's just going to take you down into that relaxed parasympathetic state. That's why I use it every day. Even though I'm a really happy person, I'm a spaz. And we need time, right? We need to regulate. And then the third super powerful thing that it does, which pretty much I've only met one autistic that doesn't have MTHFR, but all of us need detoxification support. So the power in PEMF is it supports the detoxification, reduces inflammation. So it's changing the way the cells work. It's bringing your nervous system into a relaxed parasympathetic state, and it's supporting detoxification and reducing inflammation. These are major factors in physical and mental health. And what I love and why we created this device, and this is a technology, I've been using this technology, and people will say, what about amp coil? What about Beamer? All those other things. There's nothing bad about them. They're just general frequencies. And the general frequencies are just going to regulate your nervous system. They're going to support health in particular, in general. Like, oh, I feel better and things. They're great. There's nothing wrong with them. This is designed for people who got their stuff, right? So, I have one for infections and toxins for my PANDAS people and my Lyme people. I have one for anxiety and stress, another for mood and behavior and autism, and then a straight OCD one, which we haven't even put in production because basically all my OCD people got PANDAS. So, and we still, and people can buy this direct. They don't have to come into our center. And so it's designed very, very specifically to go after the disharmonious frequencies that are associated with those issues. Now, I'm not going to fix your PANS and PANDAS. You're still going to need to address the infections. You're still going to, you need family support. This is a tool. This is something that's really helpful. But what I know about PEMF, because I've been using it for 8.5 years, is, we have the one with the big pads like Beamer and amp coil. Nobody uses it. They buy it and it sits in a room. With our PEMF, comes with a fanny pack. Yeah. You literally just put it in your fanny pack. You can wear it around your waist. You can do it crossbody. You can pop it in your pocket. You just don't want to get this wet or go in extreme heat. It has 6 different protocols specific to different issues that we kind of mentioned, and each one's a little different, of course, but each one has a different time length. So you have a 1 hour, 2 hour, and 8 hour, because guess what? Some of my dysregulated kids won't do anything. So the parents put this on them when they're sleeping, and it works to correct. So ultimately, in the end, PEMF is a therapy that's designed to change the way the cells work and calm and regulate that nervous system and get detoxification going. This is all the protocols are designed by me. They've all been tested over those 8 years because the master equipment. And it's our tagline is be calm anywhere, anytime, because you can just pop it in your pocket. Some of my adults use it before they go to work. Sometimes they use it right when they get home from school. So it gives you an ability, and everybody in the family can use it. There's going to always be a calm brain protocol. It's called Calm PEMF. So who can't benefit from that? So I'm excited. I know I listened to what people wanted, and I really worked with the company we've been using for all these years in our center. Having worked with thousands of people, they really have benefited from the PEMF.
So when people, I think, first hear about PEMF, they get caught up on the EMF part. So they've been told to get away from the electromagnetic frequencies. So tell me, or tell us all about what the difference is between PEMF and the EMFs that they've been told to stay away from.
Yeah. So at the most basic level, EMFs are unhealthy frequencies, right? Mm-hmm. They come from 5G. They come from all different types of electromagnetic activity. They're unhealthy. They actually really affect our cells. And when I mentioned there are a variety of reasons why you have such a rise in mental health and neurodevelopmental disorders, there's a lot of reasons. Bad food, genetic mutations that are happening, EMFs, too much tech. I mean, stress. I mean, there's just so many reasons we couldn't even go into it, right? But EMFs are unhealthy frequency. PEMF we are using known healthy frequencies to talk to the cell and get the cell to change. And, I think people, when they think about, brain waves with neurofeedback and neurotransmitters and cells, if somebody's listening or watching and they're realizing, wait, what do you mean? There's other ways to impact those things other than medication? Yes. I mean, there's so many things, even smiling at somebody has a massive impact on neurotransmitter activity. I mean, there's just so many positive ways that we can do that. So this is taking out and essentially canceling and cleaning out disharmonious frequencies and coming in with corrective frequencies that are healthy to get the cells to communicate and function properly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense when you explain it that way. What do you hear from your patients when they, like you've said, you use it, your family use it? So obviously you like the impact it has, but how do people feel after their first session of using a PEMF device?
So I would say that 90% of people experience one thing, and that's why it's called calm PEMF. They feel calm. Like, even when I do the focus one, it makes me chill. So I have to do mine later in the day. You see me at work, like I stick it on my shoulder, like close. So our device, it should be ideally be, placed near your heart or around your stomach for best deliverability. Again, I use it all the time. So sometimes I pop it in my pocket, but most people are so stressed that when it pulls you down into a parasympathetic, and I think all of us can relate, whether you're using breath work or something, you just feel relief. You feel a lifting. When I first started PEMF 8.5 years ago, I had this big thing in the center with all these pads and all this other stuff. We had to quickly get a second one in like 1 month because people would come out looking like, they had, had this fabulous massage. And the other people were like, what is that? I want that. And we had to actually build out and change our physical components of our center to accommodate. And as you mentioned, we're pretty much today we're about 85% virtual is what we are. And we send people equipment, whether they buy PEMF or, they're doing remote neurofeedback. So they feel calm. Now, the other 10% of people, including one of our office staff, Molly, is a perfect example of this. She says, I feel nothing when I do it, but I know it works. So for her, she uses it like I do when I feel like I'm coming down with something. She says it stops it in its tracks. So for her, so there's some people that get the physical benefit, but they don't necessarily really feel the relaxation. Now, she's a pretty chill person, so she may not feel it in that same way. And sometimes just, it doesn't matter what brain tool I'm using. A lot of times when the parents are talking to their kids, they're like, do you notice anything? Well, our kids are kind of disconnected sometimes and they can't always say it. You have to look at what's actually changing, right? But there are definitely physical and behavioral and mental health benefits of using PEMF, and people report positive things, and you got to use it. So we made it accessible because if you were, getting a big pad and you're not using it multiple times in a week, it's just not going to do its job. So this is I'm like, put it in your iPhone, people. at 7 p.m. that you got to use it or whatever it is. So, like I said, I use mine a lot at night because I need to chill out. Like, again, not an unhappy chill out, a spaz chill out.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people will hear about devices like this and then say, they are FDA approved. So let's talk a little bit more about the science behind them and that research that's been going on. So that they've been around for 30 years. What research is out there on the impacts of PEMF and obviously the safety? I mean, FDA is really about it's about safety.
Safety. Yeah. So let's start with safety because that's easy. So if somebody has a magnetic device like a pacemaker or shunt, this is not the right device for you. Definitely no on a pacemaker. Shunt, you would have to get approval. Like I've had people get approval from their neurologist. It is safe. What are typical side effects that people experience? So this is a very powerful detoxer. So people have to start slow. Like some people get it and they're like, I started the 8-hour cycle. I've like, you've clearly ignored the video and the guide that goes with it. And it needs it needs to be done slowly because of the detox. So you can get normal detox reactions, which anytime that happens, you just back off and you go a little slower, right? So, maybe doing 1 hour every other day, and then you build up to it kind of a thing. Other than that, really, there's not too many, some people get very relaxed. So it's not a great idea to do it when you're driving and all these kind of disclaimers. So let's talk about the research. So this does not have the tens of thousands of research studies that, of neurofeedback, but there's some really nice research, everything from autoimmune functioning, actually looking at what's happening to the cell, improving cellular function. There's some great research studies with memory and learning. And there's a lot of research with anxiety and stress. I would say that out of everything, there's just a lot related to stress because anything that's going to support cellular and autonomic nervous system function means we're going to have stress reduction. And, anecdotally, some of the places that I've used it the most, I mean, I added PEMF to my practice for one reason, because I had all these people with Lyme and PANDAS coming to me from all over the place. And I could always get people better with neurofeedback because once your nervous system is regulated, why am I all about calm brain, happy family? Psychoimmunology. So we know that if the nervous system is dysregulated and in an activated state, that the body cannot physically heal itself in the same way. It's not allowed. So once you're activated, all your resources, your immune system, your neurotransmitters, everything, hormones goes over to try to figure out what the stressor is. Once your nervous system is calm, it can actually do its work. Nutrient levels start getting better, brain waves start getting better. And guess what? If you have infections, your immune system can start working. So when people would come to me, and I am one of those people that I believe that everybody can get better. The degree of getting better is different, but I absolutely wholeheartedly, and I don't accept I am your provider, that's not going to happen, right? And that might even be family ecosystem stuff. Like I might have a family that, one of the moms is, or dad is too negative. Like you don't come to me and get away with that. Like, you're here because we're going to make everything better. And that's including not just right now, but for future generations. So what happened was, Tara, is I had people that, I could to a certain point and I just couldn't go further. And then I learned about PEMF. And I got to experience what one person who had Parkinson's, who was a friend of mine, who had vocal Parkinson's. And we were on a call because we were in a board together. And I said to him, what are you doing? You got your voice back. And he said, stay on. I'm going to talk to you after. And he talked to me about PEMF. And then I quickly decided I wanted to do it. So when I added it to my practice, it was really to support those people who were treatment resistant. My autistics, my PANDAS, my Lyme were just again, I got them better, but not functional enough. I like to get people as far as I can go, right? Because we know all the biohacks, like everything I do is science. So when I added it, it was pretty miraculous. I mean, some of the things that I was seeing was just like, like it was just incredible what people were experiencing in terms of symptom relief and, changing, like people that had chronic gut infections that couldn't get better. I worked with a colleague of mine, her mother had MS and no medication could stop the lesions. So we not only stopped the lesions, but we reversed some of them. That was an awesome one that should be written up because we have pre, mid, and post CAT scans with it. So, and it was the only thing that she did. But really, truly, it's been one of the most useful tools for my PANS kids and my people with OCD and really anybody who's just got that just absolute stuck in rev nervous system that is just not letting them heal. And sometimes when people are so treatment resistant, we did PEMF, and I had different versions of this, right? So we would send them with the home one. Back in the day, we had this big pad that we would lend to people and we would do it at home. And it just turned the dial, softens, right? So if I have a kid who's treatment resistant because they're not feeling well or they're just too dysregulated, what are we going to do? Right?
Yeah, so, no, it's really interesting to hear you say that, because actually when you go to, well, I know that from my personal experience, even with my own children, so I always say that, for example, digestion and gut issues, we can do all the things, just like you said, to support them. So we can supplement them and give them the enzymes or give them, support with hydrochloric acid and PEPs and all the things you can do. But you want to ultimately get to the point where you don't need to do that anymore. But without fixing that nervous system component, those things seem to never be able to be fixed entirely. They always need that ongoing support. So when you can find something that down regulates that nervous system and retrains the nervous system, like you did through neurofeedback and then found through PEMF, and in a way that's so non-invasive.
So it's just so convenient and easy, like my teenagers and college kids, they're using this on their own, and it's been a great resource for many. But you're right. And, the other thing we have to accept about regulating our nervous system, it's an evolutionary journey. Like, you don't regulate your nervous system and guess what? Life is perfect. You need to have a resource where you can use this when real life happens. Right? So, Tara and I, for this call, we were just talking about normal stressors. And, last night I had this like sitting over here and I was interviewing somebody to come work in our center. And she was like, don't forget about that. And I was like, oh, don't you worry, honey. I always got a PMF stuck in me somewhere in my pocket or wherever. And, it's important that we recognize that there are even just so frequencies are really interesting because there's all types of science behind, I talked about food science and then there's energy frequencies and, I am an energy sensitive and I can feel when people are dysregulated around me. I'm able to manage it because I take such good care of myself and my nervous system. But, our kids are very sensitive. Like my kids are both empaths. One is like me. He can just let it flow through. He can block people like it's nobody's business. And then my other kid, who's a PANS kid, boy, it can dysregulate him. And so giving the nervous system a grounding and anchor is what I like to call it. That's what I view PEMF as. That's why I feel like it's very powerful for me. I mean, certainly as somebody, I'm an Epstein-Barr girl and got it as a teenager, and it really helps me because that interplay between those toxins that you're constantly bombarded with, infections, parasites, all these things that we all sort of have in our system and you don't know until you go looking. Having a nervous system that's regulated allows our body to do its work and do the other things, like you said, not having to have, the pill closet, I should say the supplement closet out on your, not even out in your closet, to have the big bin on your kitchen counter.
Yeah. Well, and most of the parents that are listening to that, I mean, they'll go and they'll be given all these supplements. And I, we've all been there at one point in time or another. If you've had this kind of a journey, and sometimes you need to be there for a little bit.
Oh, you definitely need to be
and
there.
And that's not but you want to get to that point where, like you said, the body has the ability to do what it's supposed to do if everything's working properly. But I do think that it is in this day and age, it is really hard to escape the amount of stressors that are in our environment.
100%.
You can do all the things right and still be bombarded. Just if you live in a urban area, you're constantly bombarded by all the Wi-Fi because you can't limit what your neighbors do. There's only so much you can do about things like that. So we have to have tools in our toolbox that can help us mitigate those things that we can't control. And also even trying to stress about controlling all those things, not a good thing either. So there's that balance between.
And Tara, I'm sure you're like me, I go for massage, I go for these other things or whatever, but ultimately in the end, that's wonderful. But I always say you need 10 minutes or more a day where you are actively regulating your nervous system. So, it's okay if it's not PEMF, but then is your kid going to do 10 minutes of breath work or yoga or something? Maybe they will. That's great. But, life is so busy. I was like, and I still believe very much in neurofeedback to directly train. The difference between the two is I'm directly manipulating brain function. I can say this area, I'm treating a girl right now who was treatment resistant, for 10 years. And then, now she comes in, she's doing amazing and has a history of a lot of complex mental health things. And so her anxiety is better, her mood is better, having really great success. And she said to me as a 18-year-old, I am struggling with memory. And I think I've always had a memory problem. And we had talked, I said, I think you're actually learning disabled. And I think everyone has sort of missed this because you're always distressed. So I said, we're going to train right in that area. Right. So, and she has the attention memory PEMF. So everything is sort of working together. That's a very specific case. Not everybody needs to do both. You got to do what you can, but technology to support the brain functioning is making it a lot easier to do it in a safe and natural way. And in a way that gets to the root issue, because, medication does not correct brain function. Medication is required in order, on a constant basis in order for it to work. And there is not one psychiatric medication, not one, it doesn't have a toxicity component and does not have a side effect. So most people do a benefit cost analysis and decide, what is it worth it or not, and no judgment. I never want anybody to make another parent feel bad. We already feel bad enough as it is. But I want people to know that my personal professional experience and an opinion over 30 years of working with people, doing the reading, doing the research, is that it should never be the first line of defense. And we're having this awesome conversation because people are probably here realizing it didn't work. But I don't want people to feel hopeless and realize there are many brain tools and they're fantastic. And PEMF is something that I've been passionate about for the last 8 years. And I love this because it's accessible and it's realistic in being able to do it. I have every tool known to man in my house.
Me too.
And I got 2 of the pad versions of this. Okay. Now it's funny. My 12-year-old likes the pad version. So I don't know. He likes that version. So he sets it up. I see him on Saturday I came down and it was early and he had set it up and he said, Mom, I'm coming down with something. And I thought, oh God, I feel it was one of those proud mama moments. Yeah. Like I didn't have to ask him to do it. He did it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And he knows it helps him.
Yeah. And I think that's the one thing that I think all of us that work with kids like that, but also that have kids that have those challenges, the best thing we can do is get them to learn to listen to their bodies and then know what's impacting them positively and negatively, because they're not going to always make the best choices. But if they can recognize that that choice is not the best choice for them, because as they grow, they get to make all these choices, then at least they have that recognition, and then they can make different choices the next time if they choose. So
I love that, and amen. So that is 100%. It's a beautiful thing when they start to make the somatic, that connection to their body of what they know, and it's not us chasing around, so
no,
it's a good thing.
We got to teach them to make those good choices. And also we have to live with them when they're not making all the best choices as they go through the teenage years. And
you know what? It's funny, as somebody who's only ever been holistic and, as a teenager, I see him testing out some of his own choices. And, like I said to him, he's really very reactive and he weighed at dairy. And I said, so, you're going out with grandpa and you're having dairy. And I said, how do you feel? And he goes, I've made it. He goes, oh, Mom, it's really clear when I have dairy, I'm angry. So I said, what are you going to do about it? He's like, well, I'm not going to have it. Great. I'm glad you're listening to your body is what I said.
Yeah. And like you said, it's proud moment when they do that, because that finally, like all these years of having those conversations. It has made an impact.
Oh, and he gave me grief. The other one's a believer. He's a converter, he's already talking. He's like, those kids, they don't eat for their brain, Mommy. And I'm like, I'm like, it's great. He believes in it. So he's also a serious foodie. So he doesn't buy into junk food. He's like, this is terrible, so
that's awesome.
It is awesome. It just means though that like I have to pay for Kobe beef when we're going to a fancy restaurant.
It's a blessing and a curse all in one, but I'd rather have that than the other. So it's all good.
Absolutely. And you pay more for food and less for healthcare. So ultimately in the end,
it all works out really well. For sure.
It is for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So can you tell everybody where they can find you and the device, and if they're interested in looking into it further themselves?
Yeah. It's so super easy. You can just go to drroseann.com. It's DRROSEANN.com. And you can find the device there. It'd be right on the web page, and you can learn more about it. And we have videos there and lots of informational, and you can decide. And a lot of times people want to get on the phone with one of our, awesome team people to decide what's best for them, because they don't know. What I've also learned is that even I've created crossover protocols. People have kids with multiple issues in their families. So it is definitely a family device. At some families, for example, if you got a PANDAS kid, you got an infection toxin kid, your kid's autistic and they still have infection, you're getting the one with infections and toxins. That trumps everything else. That's got anxiety built in. It's got a little OCD built in. It's got a little rage built in. And if infections or toxins are driving what's going on, that's what has to be. So, but I certainly do a lot of that. And I'd say our biggest ones are anxiety and stress, the attention and memory, and the infections and toxins. Those are our three most popular ones that we have.
Yeah, that's really nice that you do have someone to get on the phone with, because when you look at the devices, you're like, I don't know which one would be the best one, because I've definitely got that going on and that going on and that going on.
It's an investment. This is something that another company spent years developing, and technology is not inexpensive. So people make a choice, but it's something forever. And again, people can use it in the whole family. And it is for real that my cats love PEMF. They sit on the mat and want us to turn it on. It's crazy. My other cat loves to do sauna too.
Yeah.
So he comes in the sauna with me.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, it's funny because in my eldest horseback rider, and they use PEMF with horses all the time. That's been used in equine medicine for probably all 30 years.
And acupuncture and acupuncture as well. Yeah.
And laser.
It does rapid healing too. So I remember I had a surgery and then I went into the doctor and he was like startled. And I was like, what happened? He goes, what did you do? You look like you're 3.5 weeks out and you're 5 weeks out. What did you do? And I was like, PEMF and arnica. Yeah. And I didn't take any of your drugs. Yeah. And he was like, wow. it was good. So, and it's all about, creating a healing response in the body and cells, again, everything is, cells are what creates us, right? Is all of that. We need good cellular health. And so many of our kids, including my 12-year-old, has mitochondrial issues, and we need to be more protective of our cells. It's a root cause for a lot of things.
Yeah, no, I love that, because that is something we talk about a lot here, because that is, we don't have healthy mitochondrial, and a lot of the kids do have mitochondrial dysfunction in this space. So without that, anything to support cellular health is going to help, like you said, even, regulate the nervous system, and then create an environment for healing, because the body then can do what it's supposed to do. So
and it's where our energy is for just muscle function. I mean, it's so important. It helps protect us later for things like cancer, when cells, you have unhealthy cellular activity and stuff. Not to freak anybody out, but healthy cells, food impacts us, like diet, lifestyle. There's lots of ways to help us with our cells, and PEMF is another one. But it directly, through research, shows us that it impacts how the cells function and the health of the cells. So I think that's really awesome. A lot of it's rat research, but maybe it could be horse research, Tara. But
so most of it, it might be rat research, but we know that most everything else is rats and mice anyway too.
I know,
not that
but
many
it is amazing with equine stuff, because those are such expensive animals. Man, do they use the best therapies and treatments there.
Well, the other thing that's interesting about it is, obviously there's no placebo effect. The horse doesn't know what you're doing. So when they improve after using those devices, they're working. The same thing with laser therapy, or like you said, acupuncture, all the things. Anytime you're working with animals and they have a positive response, it's the therapy. It's not, because it's we know it's not
they don't have the same cognitive functioning. They're not talking to the they don't
know it's a PEMF.
Like, hey.
They just think it's a horse blanket. They don't know, and they don't think they're regular boots that they're being put on. And, so but it's also too, you can see them. Like, that's actually the cool part too. When you talk about that down regulation of the nervous system, you can just see them sink into it and just relax. And it's amazing to watch. That's why your cats love it so much.
Can't do it at like 9 a.m. because I'm like, hey, let's relax,
It's the perfect thing right before bedtime. That's for sure.
Perfect thing right before bedtime, especially with our busy minds, Tara.
Exactly.
All of us have busy minds. And I think, so it's a great tool. I love it. I wish more people would consider it, out of not just the effectiveness of it, but for what we created, the convenience of it. And, especially when your kids are little and you're just going to so many therapies, you're like, how, I have a mom who works with us, and she's mom of 5. She homeschools her kids, and 4 have autism.
Wow.
So, she's like got 2 of these, and she's just rotating them around, her and her husband and the kids. And I love every minute of it, that she's doing that. And I'm like, make sure you're doing it for yourself. She's like, don't you worry, Dr. Rowe. Makes me calm. I'm going to do it, and I'm like, you need every ounce you can get, honey. You should be like a warrior. Now you're my mom of 5. And the 5th one isn't neurotypical either, but he's not autistic. So
that's a lot. That is,
she's doing it with a smile, and the kids,
amazing.
Has 21 therapy appointments a week.
That sounds about right. Because do the math on that one, but that's impressive. Yep. So a device like this would come in super, super handy.
Super handy for sure.
I can't thank you enough for spending time with us again today, and excited to chat soon again about the next step and the next thing that you have available for parents. Again, if you are looking for Dr. Rowe, go to www.Dr. Roseann, so ROSEANN.com. The links are in the show notes for this episode. So either on our website or on your podcast platform of choice. And thank you again for spending the time with us today, but also for sharing your wealth of knowledge and continue to bring things to the market that help the families that are so desperately in need.
Thank you for this conversation. I really appreciate it. And I know that wherever parents are is exactly where they need to be. They just need to take one step towards natural solutions.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the My Child Will Thrive podcast. Bye for now. Thanks for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this episode, please support us by subscribing and giving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. This is Tara Hunkin, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the podcast or over at mychildwillthrive.com, where you can find articles and the free My Child Will Thrive Toolkit.